Good evening. So, I recently had someone comment, um, question or a topic, I guess you could say, and that is how do addicts see non-addicts? And I believe in the reference was probably, I'm going to make a presumption here, um, in a in relationships, primarily romantic relationships. And since I'm a male, I'm going to also presume that this person was, I believe they actually asked how addicts see women who are non-addicts. Initially, I thought this was going to be a pretty straightforward question to answer. And like many, many things, there are a multitude of layers, and obviously, this is not going to be a be all end all point for every single addict or non addict out there. I can only speak on my own personal experiences. Um, I suppose it helps to just give a, for the sake of this video, a brief, simplified version of addiction, and that is essentially escapism. Um, myself, having been in and out of active addiction and in and out of active sobriety as well, have learned to identify many areas in my life that I have utilized as a form of distraction or escape, as well as external validation, which is actually just a form of escape. We're not going to get into all that though. But so, really, this what makes this question so hard to answer is a I can't speak for every addict out there. Okay? One, two, it really depends on where the addict is in their sobriety and their healing. And it also depends on the opposite, the person who doesn't suffer from addiction. Um, through my own personal experience in this journey, I have learned that a lot of people who would not be considered addicts or alcoholics or substance abuse addicts have addictive tendencies or a lot of codependency issues, which is just another form of addiction. Um, that being said, I'm going to focus on the thoughts and views and perceptions of an addict when they meet and get involved with somebody who doesn't suffer from substance abuse addiction, drugs, alcohol. Depending upon where they're at in their journey, it goes through various different stages. And this is once again based on my own personal experience. Usually, it is some combination of putting them on a pedestal, seeing them as a type of savior, almost viewing it as accomplishment of some type, dare I even say reward, in the aspect that a lot of times it makes the addict feel like they're done, they've beaten the odds, and this is a gift and or reward, and this is something that sobriety brings. The juxtaposition of that and the exact counter to that is, while that is all true, at the same time, depending upon where the addict is in their journey, it can also, they can perceive them as better than themselves, um, too good to be true, innocent even. Um, and this is where it depends heavily on where they're at in their journey, because all of those things, perceiving somebody as too good to be true, or an innocence that they could possibly corrupt, not necessarily intentionally, but unintentionally, uh, is all of that is based on different seeds of fear and doubt and self-worth issues. Um, because the person doesn't think that they're good enough, or the addict doesn't think that they're good enough, excuse me, or that they're going to, by their very nature and the things they've experienced in their life, they're going to corrupt a naive, possibly gullible, innocent person and destroy them, destroy that innocence, that purity. Now, there are the addicts out there, and it's usually when they're early in their recovery, where initially they will see this as it's a great thing, it's beautiful. Most people do. But addicts, just like most people, have a tendency to fall in love with the potential instead of the reality. So they'll see this person or this opportunity as a potential. Uh, like I said, you know, they will put them on a pedestal in one way, shape, or form. Um, Unfortunately, that always brings with it a set of expectations, expectations of perfection. When those expectations aren't met, or there's even the slightest bit of doubt, um, a lot of those deep-seated subconscious fears and insecurities that the addict have will start to manifest in different ways. They will start to believe that everything from, and this is a very hard concept to describe because it will go both ways. It'll go from the addict thinking that they're better than this person because they're being brutally honest about themselves and their problems, whereas this person may not be, due to whatever reason. Fear of vulnerability, we'll say, as an example. Um, because the addict initially put this person on such a pedestal that they were completely infallible. And then when a flaw shows up, it starts and triggers that self-sabotaging cycle. Because the addict was expecting a certain perfection, because initially they saw strength, acceptance, real love, things like this. And it caused them to believe they were healed and whole. And that's not a bad thing. If the addict is far enough in their healing journey and they're self-aware enough, it can be a great catalyst for them to continue that journey and continue to heal. Um, dig real deep into those wounds. And then, of course, it becomes whether or not the question of, if the other person involved truly has the strength and the resilience to stand by and defend that person. And of course, that's entirely based on them. The hard part is whether you're an addict or not, and you're getting involved with somebody. Some of the hardest lessons I've had to learn is that the way a person behaves or acts towards you or reacts in a situation is almost entirely a reflection of their character and not a fault of yours. So it's tough. You know, I'll probably do multiple videos on this subject as I think more about it and meditate more on it. It's actually a profoundly deep question, and to the person who asked it, thank you. Good one. Seriously. Just a kiss. I appreciate it. So that's the kind of feedback I would love. Um, I'm a thinker. So to sum up, let's see. Initially, most addicts, when they meet somebody who doesn't suffer from drug and alcohol abuse, there is a tinge of looking at them like they're innocent and they're pure, which is going to manifest in some type of fear or self-doubt of, oh, I probably shouldn't be with this person. Or if it's somebody who's really not healed, they might look at it as an opportunity to manipulate. Most really don't. The manifestations of addicts, mentally and emotionally abusing and manipulating people is literally that. It's a manifestation of something else that's going on. 99 times out of 100, it's not, unless they're an active addiction and they're literally lying to you and stealing from you and things of this nature. Most of the other stuff is not actually intended. They're just in a constant state of reaction and emotional reaction and survival. And it's because they're where they're at. Deep down, they don't love themselves. So all interactions with them, almost all, will be perceived and filtered through the perception of they're being attacked. So they're going to lash out in defense. They can be very hurtful, cruel. But once again, try to understand that that's not a fault of your character, it's a reflection of theirs. But the other side to that is most guys that I've talked to who meet a partner or an interest who doesn't suffer from substance abuse, um, oftentimes, once they get past the initial butterfly honeymoon phase of this is too good to be true, and oh my God, I'm saved, and this is the best thing ever happened to me, and I've made it. I'm sober, I'm clean, I'm doing all the right stuff, and this is the gift the universe, has given me. This is what happens. Of course, it elevates them. It gives them a self-esteem boost and all this other stuff. And I suppose that's the real problem. If they haven't done enough work on their ego, it can backfire. They get overconfident. Um, Most of the time, though, due to the own fears and insecurities of the addict, um, they pretty quickly turn to a situation or turn the situation into a lot of their doubts, fears, and insecurities get triggered and come up, which are she's only here for the money, or there's somebody else on the side I don't know about, or any number of machinations, um, which are all just reflections of self-worth. So to try to summarize again, it really depends on where the addict is in their journey and how much sobriety they have. And this is why a lot of times in 12-step programs they say that you should try to avoid intimate relationships for the first year of your sobriety. It's not a hard fast rule, and what that rule really it's an unspoken rule, and what it really is this: you shouldn't make any major life altering decisions based on emotional reactions, good or bad, for the first year or more of your life. That includes getting out of a relationship, unless, of course, it is truly mentally, emotionally, even spiritually abusive, and it's going to be detrimental to your recovery or vice versa. Um, but you shouldn't necessarily get into any either, because 9 times out of 10, you're making a pretty big life decision based on a temporary feeling, kind of like suicide. Very permanent solution to a very temporary problem or temporary emotion or whatever. I'll probably do some videos on that because I have been suicidal at times in my life, specifically my last relapse actually, and a couple of other attempts. But more on that later. Um, so yeah, I know this wasn't the best, most concise answer yet. I'm still, as you can tell, um, really trying to dig through all the multitude of what this question entails and how to best come up with a generalized answer without getting into specific examples of my own experiences or anyone else's. I may have to yet, and I don't have no problem sharing those. Um, but in my experience, most often the addict puts the person, the non-addict, on a bit of a pedestal, um, which, depending upon how healed they are, they will typically self-sabotage in some way, shape, or form because they don't feel they truly deserve it. So I hope that initially answers your question to the person who asked it. So yeah, have a good evening. Blessed be.